A de-esser is basically a compressor or limiter that only alters the levels of high frequencies. They come in handy with voice tracks, where you might use one subtly with some other processing, or you might like to use one a little bit more strongly to tame some really noticeable sibilance that can happen, particularly with female voice artists and vocalists with really hard S's. There are a bunch of dedicated de-essers around. In Pro Tools, there's a stock standard de-esser that's shipped with the program. I'll show you what that one does, but then I'll also show you a different, and I think a little bit more flexible and powerful way to de-ess that doesn't involve using a de-esser plugin. Okay, all set? Let's start with a voice track with lots of S in it. Cecil sold some silver spigots to stately soothsayers for a staggering stipend. Now I'll just top and tail that by highlighting that and hitting Control-T. And also just hitting F, and F just tidies up the tops and tails with a tiny little fade. Now let me just grab my headphones and we'll start to de-ess this. What we've got at the moment is just the recording as is. But if I go into my dynamics and I choose the Dynamic 3 de-esser, which is the standard de-esser that comes with Pro Tools, and then if I change this range, because at the moment it's not de-essing anything, but if I change the range to -12 for instance, Cecil sold some silver spigots to stately soothsayers for a staggering stipend. You can tell that it's starting to do some serious de-essing. Now, this standard control, what happens is when it detects an S, it actually drops the whole, not just the high frequencies. It basically compresses all across the frequency spectrum, which is not really what you. Not what most people would want from de-esser most of the time, but if you hit HF only, then suddenly it's got this, it's still de-essing as you can see, but it's allowing all the rest of the frequencies to still pass through. Now let's change that down to -20. It's a little bit more dramatic, and if I change that to 3.5 kilohertz and play Cecil. Cecil sold some silver spigots to stately soothsayers for a staggering stipend. It's allowing the bottom end through, but it's also seriously taming the S's up the top, the high frequencies. But for my taste, it's just a little lispy, which obviously you'd be able to change by changing the frequencies back up and sharpening the range, but that's about the limit of your controls. But also coming with Pro Tools stock standard is their compressor, the Dynamic 3 compressor limiter. Now if I go into this, you'll hear straight away that it's acting as a compressor. If I play Cecil sold some silver spigots, you can see that it's basically just, well, as you would expect, a compressor. But this isn't a video about compression, is it? It's a video about de-essing. What I'll do is I'll turn this into a de-esser by hitting in up here in the sidechain section, and then changing that to 7000, that's the frequency that we had in our de-esser. And then if I play this one more time, Cecil sold some silver spigots, you can see that it's actually only, you can see from the meter here that it's only compressing the high frequencies, as you can see. Now, with that, you suddenly have a whole lot more control here. You can control the knee, you can control the ratio, you can sharpen the release, sharpen the attack, drop the threshold, even turn up a little bit of output gain. And then if I play this again, Cecil sold some silver spigots to stately soothsayers for a staggering stipend. You can see that it's doing some pretty serious de-essing. So this, for me, is a much more powerful and much more flexible way to de-ess than using a traditional de-esser. So that's hopefully a quick and helpful intro to de-essers, with a little bit of my own perspective thrown in for good measure. Coming up in another video, I'll show you how and where I use de-essers in my own typical voice channel. If you've got any other de-essing tips of your own, please let me know in the comments section below in YouTube. And if you like this video, you know what to do. Give me a thumb, subscribe, all the usual stuff. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching.